Arena Sportsnet, presented by American Grappler.
I got more swagger than Mick Jagger, more sex appeal than Vince Neil.
All guests from all walks of life share their time with the King of Connecticut.
They are dreaming of just one night with a man such as myself.
Any and everything goes.
I am the King of Connecticut. I was raised with class and sophistication.
And now, from Norwalk, Connecticut, weighing in at 230 pounds, if George Clooney had muscles, they'd call him the King of Connecticut. The one, the only, Matt Granahan.
That's a pretty girl. Come on, back up. White sands on baby, tell her now. You dance on the beach. No water. Middle of the dancing. We got time to dance. So come on, wobble.
Alright, it is the pernicious purveyor of preposterous pomposity, manipulating the minuscule mind of the masses of miscreants. I am your host, the suntan Superman, King of Connecticut, Matt Granahan, and we have got a great guest tonight, a very special guest, the author of My Father, My Don, Tony Napoli. Tony, how are you doing this evening?
Well, right now I'm at the hospital at Long Island Jewish Hospital in Forest Hills, New York. My wife is here and she's under oxygen right now, and I'm outside in the hallway. But I didn't want to disappoint you, so I told Matt that I would do the interview because the doctors are doing what they can for, and I'll do the interview with you to get this over with, all right?
Well, we really appreciate it, and we have put some prayers to your wife, and you've had such an amazing life. And if you could start out, tell us a little bit about growing up and with your father.
Well, growing up, I really didn't get to know my father till I was about 9, 10 years old because he was in Sing Sing doing time. He went there when I was 4 years old. So, after 6 years, it was during the Second World War in 1841 to 1945. And when he got out of jail in 1945, I was 10 years old. That's when I met him. And that's how I got to know him. And I used to like to go to the gym with him because he would be the man behind the loading fighters for big time bouts. And I met a lot of the fighters, and I started sparring when I was 10 years old, in the gym with the boys. And then I became an amateur fighter. And then I went in the United States Air Force, and I represented the Air Force leading into the Olympics. And then from there, I came out, and I changed my name to Tony Rio because my father said he didn't want me boxing professionally, so I had to go to New Mexico out of New York and do that thing. And, of course, he changed that around. He found me in New Mexico and brought me back because my mother had passed away at the time, and I didn't know she had passed away. And then since then, I was in the gambling business and nightclub business and casino gambling and Vegas, Nevada. I was a baccarat man and a floor boss. And that was my lifestyle, always going where the boys wanted me to go to in casino type operations. And I didn't go back to boxing anymore, I stayed with my father, pursue him that way. And he kept sending me to casinos. I was a casino man.
Yeah. You have some of the biggest stories in your book, and we don't want to spoil it, and we want to urge people to buy this book. my father and my dad. It's such a great book, and the amazing thing about it is that Tony's stories are all incredible first-hand stories. And I know that none of us have a lot of time. You don't have a lot of time, but your father and Brian Snow here, us recording out of Chicago, there's a great story you have in the book about Al Capone and your father.
Yeah, what happened was he was about 18 years old. And he was out of school since he was 14 years old. And he never went to high school. And he went and he met, he was a gang leader in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, where he grew up at. And he wanted to be like the guys that were dressed up in suits on the street corner, and people bringing them money, like white guys. And he didn't want to be like his father, who was a bricklayer. So he had a falling out with his father, so he left his father, and he lived in the basements in Williamsburg in houses with a group of kids that they could rob, stealing, and whatnot. He was the gang leader, called the Long Street Gang, yeah. And then through my mother, he met Frankie Yale. And in 1927, Frankie Yale sent him to Chicago with Al Capone. And he had an assignment to do, driving bootleg records from New York to Chicago. And assignment to the assassination, the kiss of death, the assassination of Elliot Ness. And he missed. And there were no witnesses. He came back to New York. And he gained a reputation with all the bosses then, yes. And, yeah.
So that's a great story.
And then there was a segment on the Untouchables years ago. Every Thursday night they had Noah Brand play him, play Al Capone. And my father was played by the Indian chief that used to be an F troop on a TV show. He played Jimmy Knight. And that's how I found out about. My father never told me things like that. But it came from the FBI. And Elliot Ness himself, in 1957, wrote his own autobiography. And he mentions that in his book. And that's how we found out. My father never had conversation with us about his business, his street business. Never. We learned from newspapers and the news media and other books that were written about him. So that's what happened there. Yeah, he graduated with the boys, and he created a number of businesses in Williamsburg in the 5 boroughs, and then finally reached after 40 years from 1947 to 1990. He had a $150 million gambling business operation, one of the biggest in the East Coast. And then he started in the casino business for the boys, advised them on invested their money in the Sands Hotel in 1957, and then at Caesar's Palace in 1967. And Mario Lanza was on the lam then, trying to find a home to stay at. In one state, they kept throwing him out of countries. So my father replaced him. And my father was Bugsy Siegel's replacement in 1949, but Bugsy was wiped out in 1947. But it took 2 years for the East Coast mob to find someone like my father with integrity to handle their money in Vegas. After they moved out of Cuba.
Speaking of Bugsy Siegel, your father didn't think too highly of Mario Lanza.
No, because he knew Mario Lanza was skimming off the top with the boys and getting away with it. But he was one of the guys anyway. He was one of the creators of Murder Incorporated with Ahmed on the State Show. But he was well respected, Mario Lanza, by the boys, but he bullshitted them because they figured he was Jewish, he had all the knowledge. But he went to Cuba and he had a good relationship with Batista, when Batista was the general of the army in Cuba, not the president, in 1937. And then he moved a lot of money with the casinos in Cuba. And my father had to go out there, and he found out that Lansky was taking pretty good care of himself with banks in Europe, and South America. And he went along with it, and he protected the East Coast, mostly the Genovese family, with their investments.
And to backtrack, you mentioned your lucrative your father's gaming business was, and running numbers. When your father,
he was the godfather of Williamsburg. He employed 300 families in another business. Yeah, and they were able to pay their rent, and they stayed off welfare, they stayed off food stamps, and my father always encouraged them to get a regular job with the city so they could have a pension, because he didn't pay a pension, he paid them off the books. And a lot of them listened to him, and most of them that passed away. Their children and great-grandchildren are alive, and they moved all over the country, however. So they tell me stories. I get a lot of stories from hearsay from those type of people. Yeah.
Yeah, but a couple points on that from your book. When your father and you had gone away and you were taking care of that business, you did a very...
Well, actually, what I did was this. My father had supervisors running his business when he went and did it last 7 years of his life in jail for promoting gambling without a license, and the RICO Act. Yeah. So to protect those 999 men and the 300 families, he decided to keep his supervisors to control and run the business. And he went to the Genovese people. He was a made man with them, and they supplied the money for the bankroll and kept figures because there was enough money to pay back any money that was borrowed to put into the number business if there was major hits,
Yeah.
And there's with the odds at 999 to 1, and you only pay 500 to 1, so the odds were in his favor, and he knew that. So now those supervisors were gamblers, and they mismanaged the money. And when he came home, he was in debt for $500,000 after 6 years. And he made a deal with the Genovese people to take over the business. It was theirs, and he stayed home, and he was inactive, and he stayed a lot with me at my home then. And he told me stories, and my business that I had was runners and controllers who left when he was away because his supervisors were not paying off on time with another hit. But now I wound up getting money together, and I took them over until my father got out of jail, and my father took those controllers back, and he gave them to the Genovese people so they could operate, and he could pay back the $500,000, and nobody harmed his men. So he protected his men all the way because they owed a lot of loan sharks money when he was away. They were gamblers, but you're not going to get college graduates to run another business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so a lot of other gamblers, a lot of them are degenerate gamblers are going to gamble away.
That's what Trump, he hired college kids to run his casinos, and he went bankrupt. You don't do that. You got to get practical experience. Wise guys from the streets employed them to watch for sharpshooters, watch for hustlers in the casino. And college kids, they don't know what to look for,
Exactly, yeah.
But they can stay in the office as clerks, but not on the floor, Yeah,
anyway. And you had also mentioned, and something I really agree with, that the neighborhood bookie is more of your friend than when the government runs.
Than the government when it runs it. Yeah. Because the neighborhood bookie tells you, listen, you're over the limit, you can't bet no more. And if you try and cash a Social Security check with them or any kind of a check, they won't take it. They say, go home to your wife. But whatever money you owe me, you give me so much every month, and then you can still bet with cash. But if you win, you don't have to pay the other debt until you have the money, but you'll get paid full for the new bets that you make. But you'll pay so much on the old debt on your own.
So they're much more your friend than than the government. One other thing
That's right, yeah.
I wanted to get to, then we don't have too much time, is you were a professional boxer and you have a great story. This is a really interesting story about Rocky Marciano and Mario Lanza, who a lot of people will know.
Yeah, they were very close friends, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
story about how Mario Lanza died.
Yeah, well, what happened was Rocky went to Rome, Italy, and that's where Lucky was, Luciano, who married his mistress later on. And there was Mario Lanza in a private hospital, whereas he could lose weight because he was a film star. He wasn't a stage star, you know.
Yeah.
And he needed a microphone. Well, anyway, Mario now went to this institution, and Rocky knew about it. And the doctor there and the nurse are still missing till today because this is what happened. They shot Mario up with pregnant woman's urine to help him lose weight. But what they did was they shot him up with water, and it went into his heart and exploded his heart. Why? They were ordered by Lucky Luciano because Lucky asked Mario to do a favor when he was in Rome. He wanted him to sing at one of the opera houses there, and Mario said that he's there under treatment, you know, but he doesn't want to publicize that he's trying to lose weight. And he was weak, he wasn't strong, but Luciano didn't buy that answer, and it's hearsay by people like Rocky Marciano himself that knew what happened. Till today, the nurse and the doctor who treated him are among the missing. They never found them again, wherever they are. If they're alive.
And they're all first-hand stories. What an incredible book. Again, it's called My Father, My Don, and we're not even scratching the surface of all of the stories in this book. And I want to get to one other story that I thought was pretty interesting and it involved Frank Sinatra getting slapped around a little bit.
Yeah, well, what happened that night? That was in 1967 at the Sands Hotel in Vegas, Nevada. Howard Hughes took over midnight, and he sent Mayhew, his man Mayhew there, to finalize things, and we couldn't give out any markers, any credit until at midnight. So now Sinatra wanted a $50,000 marker. Paul that he used to do that because he was working at the Singer there, you know, and he would get paid $250,000 a week for 3 nights. Yeah. And he always took $50,000 to get people excited at the table. They would come and gamble with him. They could say they gambled with him, and we couldn't give him the $50,000. Why? Because we didn't own the place no more, and he couldn't understand that. He was drinking. So Carl Cohn, the casino manager, a tough guy from Cleveland, came by way of Mario Lanza. So what happened was he invited Sinatra up to the tower, the 3rd floor. That's the private suite that Carl Cohn had for himself. And he beat the hell out of him. He knocked his feet out. And he said, "Don't ever embarrass me again," you know, because Sinatra raised his voice. And of course, Carl Cohn was Jewish. And Sinatra, being a Sicilian, and he gave a slang expression, Italian expression, he told Paul, "Listen, you Jew bastard, give me that money now." And Paul was a man that wouldn't hit somebody on the casino floor. He wanted no witnesses. He was an ex-fighter, so they took him to his suite and beat the hell out of him. And I had to take over from there and help get him to an oral surgeon. And my father bought me out because I'm supposed to be on the side of Carl Cohn, not on the side of Sinatra, because I'm an employer, he's an employee. And
Sinatra had that swagger, you know. He would never think that could happen to him. So I thought that was.
Yeah, well, no. Hitman, Joey Rizzo and them knew of Carl Cohn. They were from that gambling life. Everybody Sinatra had with him were either former football players, knew about gambling, about white guys, boxers, excited. And about 10 guys traveled with Sinatra because he wanted to pay them rather than pay the government income tax. He wanted to have a payroll tax to help those guys out when they retire. Even Joe Louis was there. So I remember Joe Louis, my father put him on the floor to work there with me. They told me to give Joe Louis a sign $500 a week. Just to sign autographs to see his style.
That's amazing.
So anyway,
I heard about that. Towards the end of his life, he was...
and with Tarzan, with Johnny Weissmuller.
Yeah, Johnny Tarzan, yeah.
Yeah, the wise guys helped those guys out when they retired from movie business, fighting, and broke and wrestling. And so anyway, I was instrumental. I was in a position that I had to make sure they got paid, so much money every week.
Speaking of wrestling,
because as a matter of fact, Sinatra paid for some of the money for Joe Louis's funeral.
Yeah. That's. And speaking of wrestling during that era, did you ever cross paths with Bruno Sammartino?
No.
No, I was just curious because he was so well known, had that celebrity status.
At that time, my guy was Antonino Rocco in the ring.
Antonino Rocco.
He'd jump on the ropes and jump on top. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And the sweetest angel. Yeah. All that guy.
Yeah, there's such amazing stories in this book, and I just want to tell everybody, and encourage everybody, man, you won't be able to put it down. And I want to just ask you before you go that you had a movie coming out with one of my good buddies with Sal Francioso.
He was in. I put him in. I did a short film, and I put him in as one of the wise guys, one of the bosses of the Five Families in New York. He played a good part. He put a good boss.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Now, I want to give you an opportunity. I want to close by giving you an opportunity to tell people where can they buy the book, My Father, My Don. Where would you like to buy the book?
They can get it on Amazon.com. They could get it on BarnesandNoble.com. They could get it on ebook. They could get it from my website, www.myfathermydon.com. They get an autographed copy. If they want an autographed copy, they get it directly from me then, That's my website. And myfathermydon.com. And they go there. Hey, listen to the instructions.
Go to myfathermydon.com, buy this book. You will not regret it. You won't be able to put it down. There are a lot of these books that you read, they're based on hearsay. This book is based on a real story, someone who actually lived it, had such an incredible life. And Tony Napoli, we want to thank you for coming on the show, and we also want to say that our thoughts, our prayers are with your wife right now.
I have to go in the room now to see my wife because they finally got her back together with the oxygen. She had a biopsy on her left lung and a biopsy on the kidney, and they're trying to find out why she fills up with water all the time. And that's why she's here 3 weeks. And I've been with her, and they gave me a recliner to sleep over next to her. And I've been doing that. And it's great. My daughters help me. Yeah, my daughters help me. They give me a break, and I go home once in a while, take a little shower, and come back. Like tonight, my daughter be here, leave me, and I'll go home, and then come back early in the morning. Stay with her, because I'm the one who called the doctor, and the nurses just now, and I saw the oxygen machine going down the needle. And because they don't have it monitored. But I didn't want to disappoint you guys, because my wife said to me, keep talking about that story, because she's chapter 22. How I met her and everything. That's the name of the chapter, Laura. That's her name.
Chapter 22, yep.
Yeah, with the face surgery. And Tom Selleck is in there when he was advertising Marlboro cigarettes. But I'm not going to give you the story away what happened there, and it's laughable. So I'm going to get back to my wife if you don't mind now, all right? Because she's the one who encouraged me to talk. She's the one who encouraged me to talk to you because it's a live radio show and she wanted me to complete it, all right?
Thank you so much. God bless you, and to you and your wife.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
their chauffeurs would drive. When I was 35